Hello and welcome to the second track on week one of the Connection webinar series. In this particular session, we're going to be looking at the future of high quality post-print. Everyone's talking about digital. Everyone's talking about how single pass digital is getting close to matching litho. And what we want to do here today is have a conversation with some leading protagonists within the Flexo post-print market. I'm delighted to say that we're being joined by Anthony Whiteside from Absolute. We're being joined by David Burgess from JB Machinery. We're with Scott Miller from BCM Inks. We're with Michael Donnett from Koenig & Bauer, and also John Burgess from Pamarco. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Michael, I'd like to pass the first question to you as a machinery manufacturer. Can you give us a little bit of an update as to what's been going on in technological terms over the last 5 years or so that has really propelled high quality post-print to where it is today?
Yes, thanks for having me, and I would like to give you some ideas what I have, or what brought Flexo post-print really forward the last years. Of course, on first hand, you have to mention that it's servo drive technology. All the state-of-the-art machines today have real servo drive technology driving each single shaft by one servo drive. Then it's the vacuum transfer, wiping out the transfer rolls inside the machine. And then, of course, today we have analogs roll change systems. We can apply the right analogs roll to the substrate within 2 minutes. And we have several analogs rolls within every print unit. So in case you are doing brown boxes or white boxes or coated paper, uncoated paper, you always can choose the right analogs roll within minutes, which decades ago has been, you had to dismantle almost the entire machine. But today, this is all going very fast and very quick. And this helped a lot to get the registration, to get the correct register in multicolor HQPP printing, and therefore give Flexo post-print a big move forward to come close to offset lamp. Yeah.
So I'd like to move to the individual components now that create high quality post-print. So let's start by looking at the inks. Scott, I'd like to come to you now, please. Can you give us a little bit of update as to what's been happening from the scientific standpoint as to how inks have been developing over the last few years, and maybe a few things that we might be getting excited to look forward to over the coming 2 to 3 years?
Oh, thank you, Dan. We appreciate this opportunity. One of the biggest, you've over the course of the last 5 years, there's been some major improvements in both preprint, how the plates are imaged, how the ink is being applied, and all that's allowed us to develop an ink that's more soluble. The challenges we had in the past with some of the older equipment was getting that ink to dry properly, especially when you're printing really high-end printing with fine screens where you're trying to keep that ink dry, to not dry on plate. With the new technology that's out there and a finer ink film thickness and all the bells and whistles on this equipment, we are now producing very small dots at a very high line screen. And what that has allowed us to do is make our inks more soluble. So by making our inks more soluble, we're able to keep that really fine dot clean without having to stop and clean the presses all the time, and that's allowed the gamut to be raised in in the image, which is getting closer and closer to litho.
And Scott, in terms of, because you mentioned color gamut there, obviously all box makers are chasing the holy grail of trying to match brand house colors with process colors. What's been happening over the last couple of years in terms of the sort of blending and mixing technologies that allow for the replication of those important brand colors?
Well, yeah. So with there's a big push for G7 is the biggest push that's been out there, and that is so that allows everybody to really print in a similar gamut. So what from the ink side, what we have done is, you have to stay very close to specific hue angles, and by hitting those hue angles with our process ink set, we are very we have an ink set that is in compliance with G7, so everybody's getting a very similar gamut with to print within.
And John, if we look now at how the importance of analogs now in terms of the transfer of the inks, what developments have been taking place in the analogs market over the last few years that is going to effectively help us get to that game-changing situation?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for letting us take part in this. Well, Michael certainly stole some of my thought process on the analogs, and that's with the turrets. These newer machines with the turrets allow us now to pinpoint exactly what volume is needed for each job, and it gives a lot more flexibility to the printer than years gone by, when it was really all about compromise, because 8 to 10 to 12 hours to change an analogs roll just wasn't in the cards when we're changing jobs 10 and 12 times a day. The analogs have obviously, we've seen our screen counts, the average screen count we're engraving increase from somewhere around 180, which was about 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And I would say our average screen count now is surprisingly still low, about 400 for corrugated. But for high quality post print, we're seeing a lot of screen counts in the 600 and 800 line screen, and even above 1,000. Which many, many years ago, nobody had ever thought you'd see 1,000 line analogs in a post printer for corrugated. Of course, with that becomes a lot of additional discipline that's needed. You don't have the huge bucket just to put the ink in and expect it to come out. So you lose 10% of the volume off an 800 line screen, and all of a sudden you're not getting ink densities. So cleaning, wash up systems have to be maintained to a lot better standard than they have been in the past. But we're certainly seeing lower volumes, thinner ink films, of course, with most presses, or all presses really now being equipped with Dr. Blade chambers that wipe very, very efficiently. We're only carrying the ink that's in the cell. There's really no surface ink getting to the plate. That's a combination of the thin cell wall on the analogs because of the way the laser beam cuts the cell, and then the wiping action of the chamber. You've really got to dial in the volume to understand exactly what you're putting down on the paper. And then the last development has really been the hybrid cells. So we're now doing a lot of cells which have got this extended design, and they're shallower, they're flatter, and they allow a better ink release at finer line screens, so we can match a volume with a higher line screen and give better print fidelity, and also be able to actually maintain the rolls for future print. So I think those are the biggest advantages or biggest changes we've seen the last few years.
And John, you mentioned something earlier in your answer there. You were talking about effectively the cleaning and the maintenance of the analogs. There's been a lot of development, hasn't there, in terms of the actual cleaning equipment and the processes for analogs. Give us a little overview there as to some of the technologies that have been made available to mainline box plants now.
Well, it has changed tremendously over the last 10 years. People were very much used to using a surfactant in the wash-up system and then getting in with a brass or a stainless steel brush to clean the rolls. We've moved on a long way now from soda blast cleaners, both on press and off press, to now many of our customers, particularly the high-end customers, are using ultrasonic cleaners, both There is a on-press design, which is just gaining some acceptance in the marketplace, and off-press. We also have this cleaning blanket, which is a blanket that fits around the print cylinder and actually abrades the analox roll but doesn't wear it. It's got some fine fibers that get into the analox and clean it. And really it comes down to a routine where you've got everyday cleaning, once a week cleaning, a monthly cleaning, and then greater than that. But certainly you've got to be very careful with the advent of the turrets, just taking an analox roll offline, dropping it under the turret and leaving it dirty, and expecting that when you bring it back up for the next job, that it's going to print just like it did before, because it isn't. So that is really, I think that's one of the biggest concerns I have with the turret. I think is a fantastic development, but people's propensity just to out of sight, out of mind could really come back and hurt.
Anthony, I'd like to come to you now, if I may, because John was talking there very much about changes in mindset in terms of regular maintenance, etc. Give us a little update in terms of what's been going on with the chamber systems and the blading systems now for the high quality Flexo post-print. What developments have taken place that really sort of puts us onto this holy grail of the ultimate in high quality post-print?
Well, thank you,
Dan.
I'd start by saying that obviously getting absolute perfection on the blade surfaces so we get perfectly flat blades is a really, really good start. That sounds very straightforward, but is a relatively easy win if the systems are in place to achieve that. And just simple things. It's quite apparent that we have many suppliers in this industry, and they are using similar diameters of analox rollers, but they're actually doctoring with different sized profiles. We know there's an optimal angle to doctor an analox roller, and yet we still haven't got a standard across the board that says that at this diameter, we should use this profile to give us that consistent angle. There are many different profiles, and they all give us slightly different result. So what we're looking for is a basic mechanical standard that means that they're all set the same, but once
okay, I think we've oh, okay. Anthony, I think we've lost you there for a second. You wouldn't mind just repeating that last statement?
Okay, but when we've got that standardization where we've got a consistent angle that everybody agrees with, we can then produce the same product with the same ink set on different machines and get the same result. So that would be a really nice, easy win to start with. But I think on a longer term picture, we're seeing a development of several specialist ink circuit providers that really mean we can really own that ink circuit. And obviously, we're talking about high quality post-print here. Our industry is moving from a point where you sold boxes for protection, and that was the primary focus, and then you put some print on it. If you can't produce a box that isn't protecting the product, you're not off first base. We're actually now selling brands on boxes. And if we're going to do that, we need some real color consistency. And that involves not just pumping ink or just doctoring ink or providing an analox. That involves having a whole circuit that monitors and maintains that ink so that throughout the life of the job, we're producing an absolutely consistent product all the way through.
And Anthony, as an industry, we've been very good at almost wasting ink at the end of each job, and the wash-up process, etc. What strides and what developments are being made to help get a control on that? You were talking about ink transfer and ink circulation systems. So give us an overview of what's been happening there.
Well, certainly our industry, I think, is more aware of the environmental obligations of organizations than some other industries. And we are making great strides at that side of it. So, there was a time when a quick wash-up was considered about how quickly you could push ink and water through a system to clear it out, and that regardless of what was lost, now it's much more focused on we need to recover the maximum amount of that ink we can do. And then obviously, because there's not much ink in the system, the wash-up's relatively straightforward. So it's a win-win. Not only can we achieve a quick result, but now we can achieve a result that optimizes our ink recovery, minimizes our losses, and saves everybody money and gives us environmental credibility. So I think there's a lot on that side that is really exciting. And it's a dual situation. We see a lot of the new machinery manufacturers buying heavily into this technology. But of course, when we have machines that are 25 and 30 years old in the industry, providing that on new equipment won't give us the result we want. We then have to go back and upgrade the existing equipment that's in the market because we can't wait 30 years to do it.
Yeah. Now, David, can we come to you now? In terms of, we've been looking so far at what's been going on with inks and with analogs and the transfer with the blading onto the plates. Obviously, the way that we're printing in Flexo with the photopolymer plates, invariably there's going to be the opportunity for particles to get onto the plates. So what are we doing about that in terms of trying to ensure that we're not getting hickeys and repeat marks in the high quality post-print image?
Well, I think maybe the first thing we need to do is take a step back and say that this whole change to high quality post-print production has seen a whole change in the mindset of everybody. John mentioned cleaning. Everybody's going to mention cleaning, maintenance. I think from where we were in the corrugated industry, which was 25 years ago, we were just pumping boxes out, to where we are now, where we're seeing high quality printing presses sitting in virtual clean rooms. That's going to do nothing but accelerate the growth of high quality post-print. You know, one of the obvious issues that we deal with on a daily basis is paper dust and paper fiber, because we're printing on paper. And naturally, as you go to finer and finer screen counts, you get to inks that might get tacky, then you do start to see the images flawed because you're getting hickeys, you're getting particles, you're getting dust, dirt, debris being transferred to the printed job. And I think everyone will agree, it's very difficult to print 4-color process at 145 line, but it's really difficult to print a heavy solid, a flood coat solid on a high holdout paper without any hickeys, any marks or anything. So there's a couple of technologies that have been developed. One of them employs a head that's traversing across the printing plate and continually cleaning the plate whilst we're printing. The advantage of that, obviously, is that we're not experiencing downtime to stop the machine and clean the plates, which is a huge level of downtime in most press rooms. We're just continually cleaning and removing that dust, dirt, and debris. We're actually stopping that dust, dirt, and debris being transferred back to the analogs, which does help keep the ink film thickness very consistent throughout the run. And we also see that by using this technology, we do improve the color consistency, because instead of the ink layering on the printing plate, we've got a single laminar layer of ink that's sitting on the plate. So that's one technology. The other technology, let the plates get dirty and then clean them, to use a very simple system that basically stops feeding sheets, cleans the printing press, on press. It's an auto clean. It doesn't involve personnel, because let's face it, the job of cleaning plates is an awful job for the press crews. They hate it. So if you can automate that process, you're better off. So if we can automate that process, clean the plates in 5-6 minutes, you'll have a few waste sheets when you start up again, but you're now way more productive and obviously the press is able to run at speed and not load up again with hickeys, etc. But we're also seeing people putting, there's far more of the sheet cleaners being employed, and as I mentioned, I think the people are realizing that these machines need to be well away from the corrugator, because that's the source of dust, dirt, and debris. So they're being put in clean rooms. So I think we're actually learning from digital. The digital generally is found in a clean room. I think people are finally realizing, hey, they may have something here. Maybe we ought to do that with a Flexo press also.
Now, I'd like to ask a question to both you, David, and also Scott. And this is specifically with reference to the very rapid progress that's being made in terms of recycled test liners. So obviously it's huge in Europe. It's starting to gain significant market space in the North American market. But Scott, how do you as an ink manufacturer handle the fact that we are moving towards recycled liners, which invariably is slightly more porous? So how are you handling those developments, Scott?
Yeah, so the challenge with the recycled liner, a couple things. You're getting sometimes more absorption, and coverage is decreased. So we're having to put some additives when we're running up against these recycled liners. That's allowing a little more ink to be released off the analox roll or plate. I'm just trying to increase that ink film thickness slightly to help with the troublesome or the issues that you're dealing with when you're dealing on the recycled liner. So we're basically trying to increase that ink film thickness slightly, just by trying to get more ink to release off the plate, more ink to come off that analox roll.
And David, in terms of once the printed image is now on that corrugated sheet, you've got the option there for drying. So talk us through those various options that you've got.
Well, first of all, I think Scott's absolutely right. We are seeing a lot more porosity. And I've been definitely noticing around the country that people running a lot of recycle are running much higher analox volumes. The analox volumes, instead of maybe being 7.5 BCM, we're seeing a lot of 8.5 BCM. As to go back to John, what he was talking about with the ability to quick change analogs, with the high quality printers, they have the ability to change analogs. And let's face it, the vast majority of that really high end work is being done on semi-coated and fully coated paper. So that really doesn't play into it. Where it plays into it is with, let's call it a hybrid press, where one day they're printing on kraft, one day they're printing on white top, and then for 15 minutes they're printing on a semi-coated paper, and they want everything to work out fine for them. So that's really one of the struggles, one of the difficulties that we have, because typically they're going to set the machine up with the higher volume analoxes, because that's where the majority of the work is, and they don't have the ability to quick change. When it comes to the recycled papers and the porosity, dryers definitely help, and that's a message we've been trying to get out there, is that when you use infrared energy to dry the ink, we're actually drying a lot of the ink on the surface. We're trapping that ink on the surface of the sheet before it has a chance to soak into the porosity of the paper. So the image is actually a better definition image. It's got better color strength. It's not allowed to sort of fade out into the sheet, and it's got a better gloss level. So we've also got a lot of customers, let's say in the wine box industry, that environmentally they're being asked to print on kraft. It's a feel-good thing. So in many cases, what they're doing is they're laying down a background using maybe a titanium white, drying it, and then overprinting that with a color, whether it be red, green, orange, blue, whatever it might be, whatever the brand color is, so that image really holds out and sits out on the paper. We're seeing a lot of that out on the West Coast.
Michael, I'd like to come to you now, please, from the machinery manufacturer's point of view. We've certainly seen, obviously, disruption in the marketplace. Order lengths are getting shorter. Box plants are having to process more orders in a day. What are your thoughts in terms of the actual equipment itself? Are we looking at a future that is just going wider and faster, or do you think the current format that we're operating at the moment is still, still got a decent shelf life? Michael, you need to switch on your microphone, Michael.
Okay, sorry for that. What we have seen in the last years is that the machine size, when we look at the rotary die cutters, for example, we have seen that machine size moved from, in average, 2.4 meters to 2.8 meters today. So the machines became bigger, they became faster, and due to the fact that we are running shorter runs, the machine have now the capability of setup while running. If you now look on what is running on these machines, on these 2.4, 2.8 meter wide rotary die cutters, then you will find in a lot of plants that the average board size is 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 square meters per feet. So we are not, at the moment, we are not really making use of the complete width and the complete feet length of the machine. And also, we heard about drying, we heard about aniloxes, giving the right amount of ink to the machines, and we maybe we also discuss something about inline and offline installations and processing. Very often the maximum machine speed is not the declining factor. Quite often it's really the amount of ink. Are there the right dryers in? Is the right dryer capacity integrated in the machine? And so this, and how about the die forms? Are they giving enough waste, or are they shooting the waste away in such a way that the machine can run at full speed? So these are the limiting factors at the moment. So I personally do not see the machine speed as a limiting factor, but we also have seen that in the last years, Flexo post printers, high quality Flexo post printers went up to 14,000 kicks per hour. We have now rotary die cutters which run more than 10,000. They run 12,000 feet maximum per hour. So the machine, as a machine manufacturer, they give room to that idea. They follow this idea, and now the other limiting factors have to be overcome.
John, let me come to you now, as obviously you've got a huge amount of experience in the global corrugated industry in terms of the overall print process, but there is still this ongoing whole argument of inline versus offline. Can you give us your view on what you think is the best for achieving the ultimate in high quality post print?
I think that's like asking how long is a piece of string, because everybody's going to give you a slightly different answer. I think both have their place, and I think it all comes down to the quality of the people, the quality of the equipment, and how the plant is operated as to which works best for the individual. I think there's a huge misnomer in our industry that to do high quality post print, you have to be running 133, 145 line screen plates. You have to have 800 or 1,000 line aniloxes. I think you can do some high quality post print with 250 line aniloxes and 65 and 85 line screen plate if the plants are dedicated and disciplined enough to do it, if the board is good, if the inks are good, and they can wipe the aniloxes right. So I don't think there is a one size fits all type answer to that. I think a lot of it comes down to the quality of the crews and the quality of the equipment. Certainly with the equipment that's being sold now, that's coming into the market, the sky is the limit. But there's an awful lot of latitude left in the older equipment if people treat it correctly and are educated on what needs to get done. Obviously, we see upgrades in old equipment with dryers. And then we'll have customers coming to us wanting to know what to do next with the Anlox rolls, rather than just maintaining the status quo of what they've run for the last 10 years. They're prepared to think outside the box, to challenge the norm a little bit. And I think it's fair to say every one of them runs into some problems along the way, but it's how you tackle the problem and then how you go beyond it and solve your problem. I think that's the major part for me.
Mm-hmm. Anthony, I know that your organisation is a massive supporter of the EFIA, the European Flexographic Industry Association, and EFIA just held their annual awards virtually 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So, Anthony, in North America, there's Clemson University, where there's obviously all the opportunities for young students to learn the art of flexo printing and all of the technical aspects of corrugated box making. Can you tell me a little bit about what EFIA gets up to in terms of promoting the industry? Because, you know, it's not the sexiest of industries. And I do worry that as each generation goes on, this sort of mystical black art of high quality printing could sort of retire itself. So do you have a short overview for us in terms of what EFIA gets up to in promoting and educating?
Yeah, EFIA have put a huge amount of effort into working for a completely online training program for flexo printing, covering all the different aspects of flexo printing. They've done it in conjunction with the FTA in Europe, which is also a flexible packaging organisation. And I think EFIA have really pushed the academy, as they call it, to bring forward, every time you become a member of EFIA, you get offered free places for your students to go online on your apprentices, and the people in the organisation in the box plants are just starting on that process. But I do think it's an interesting question that you raised, because of course in previous decades there were several specialist print colleges all over Europe, and a lot of those have closed, and that's really seen as something that's not going to come back particularly quickly. I think it's much more interesting, though, to look at where that's going to go in the future. Hearing a lot about artificial intelligence. Obviously, Industry 4.0 is making progress. And in reality, when I look at other industries, such as the offset industry, technology that they're using, and increasingly in the flexible packaging sector, I genuinely believe that these Internet of Things will get us to a point where the next generation of machines won't involve guys standing at the side of a machine and checking inks, right, and making sure the sheets are feeding through correctly and keeping an eye on the machine. These guys are going to be what all our sons and daughters are doing now. They're going to want to sit in front of a PLC in an air-conditioned room and monitor all the sensors and the scanning equipment and all the equipment required, so that machine can run perfectly and optimally. And if it needs adjustment, we're seeing it coming before it actually happens. And of course, then you have a planned maintenance schedule where you do go down and do a physical intervention, but it is about controlling all those variables from a distance, not having a guy who has that black art, that knowledge that seems somewhat vague, that's hard to pass on in a technology manner. It's going to become much more of a science-based piece of equipment, much more of an artificial intelligence-based piece of equipment than it currently is, in my belief. And I think that's where we will go. So these guys will still train with EFIA, but they won't be training on the basics of Flexo process. They'll be training on how the systems work to control those variables. It's called Flexo because it's flexible. That's both its beauty and its bane. It means you've got a lot of variables that you have to control very well, but it does give you lots of opportunity to do things that other processes can't do. So we've got to control those variables better. And I think that's the key through technology.
And Michael,
Totally
Anthony was
agree.
talking there about the Internet of Things and how Industry 4.0 is going to help shape the future of the future corrugated box plant. What work is being done from the machinery organizations in terms of integrating with the plant system, the software companies, the data management, analysis of ink, etc. So what work is being done in those fields? Oh, Michael, we've lost your speaker again. Microphone. Okay, we've lost Michael there. Does Scott? How about? Can you jump in on that for us? Because one of the elements there we were talking about, obviously, data management and integrity of the dosing of the inks and the feeding of the data backwards and forwards from the machine to the plant management system. So, what sort of interactions are you having with the various software companies?
Well, we actually are a big proponent of monitoring and managing both color and inks. So from a color perspective, you're seeing a lot more color management software press side, spectrophotometry press side, and monitoring and adjusting color press side. We spoke earlier about brand specific colors. Colors are becoming more and more critical. So you're starting to see a lot more instrumentation and software being utilized press side to ensure color consistency. You can't have color consistency with an ink if you're not monitoring both the pH level and the viscosity too. So that all comes into play. So you're seeing more and more equipment out there that is, we're not relying on the press operator or helper to take, pH readings and adjust pH. It's all being done automatically now. So with that automatic dosing or adjusting or controlling temperature of the ink press side, you're also controlling the color, which is the most critical aspect of the ink from the brand side.
Mm-hmm. Michael, have we got you back online now?
I'm back. Sorry for that. Lost the mic again. Okay.
No problem. So, Michael, just to give you the opportunity to give us your views on what's happening in terms of integration with all the various software and the plant scheduling systems, etc.
Yes, what we are working on is a lot on we call it, or it's called Internet of Things or Industry 4.0. So a lot of all these machines, they're having a lot of sensors and a lot of data which are coming out from the machine. And the invention is to find a way to filter all these data in such a way that you can make some findings from it. And working on, for example, a predictive maintenance, giving the plant a signal saying, look, we found something in our machine which doesn't look normal, and looking in our database, we found that this part might fail within the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So we recommend you to put this part aside to have a replacement in case you get a failure. This will be the coming thing. So not wait until the machine breaks down, but to give to receive a message in time, so you can react upfront. You can act, not react, and this is the important thing for that.
And David, can I come to you now, please? Obviously, with your experience in terms of the ancillary equipment within these high quality Flexo post-print machines, one area that the digital industry pushes quite hard is talking about exact quantities, variable data, etc. And that obviously puts big pressure on a box plant because it's about data management. But even in high quality Flexo post-print, you've still got the same issue that as an industry, we're trying to drive down waste, So we don't want to be producing excessive run. We don't want to be producing 10% overage, for example. So when you look at some of the systems, the camera systems that are checking and ejecting bad sheets, or it's got a hickey, etc., it's a huge mindset change, isn't it, for the operators, because they're now having to work with data, not just with job orders, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think our job as a manufacturer of equipment, whether it be peripheral equipment or the actual machine itself, is as far as we can go to remove the operator from the equation. I think that's what Anthony was getting at. For too long, the industry's been a touch and feel industry. And if we can bring in all these processes and make them predictable, whether it be drying, plate cleaning, pump pressures, ink stability, give it pH and viscosity, the more we can make this predictable, repeatable, then we can start to minimize waste. And we can run at 10,000 sheets an hour, and we can run as long as we want to, from beginning to end of the press run. You know, these machines, as Michael knows, are extremely expensive now. Press downtime is incredibly expensive. And the idea of having a press going down every 10 minutes to either clean a plate or to fix a jam, or, you know, that's where all of a sudden we're going to become non-competitive. We do whatever we can do the operator for the equation. Yes, we're always going to have some human interface, but let's take as much data as we can, use it, let's repeat, let's make this a very precise, predictable process that repeats day after day. If we can get to that point, I think we can take on any printing process because we've got speed and we've got consistency going for us.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. It's been a fascinating 45 minutes discussing high-quality post-print with you. I think probably the takeaways are going to be trying to understand, as the plant of the future, how we position Flexo in terms of the machinery itself. We understand that all of the integral parts are becoming more and more sophisticated, from servo drive, from ink metering to transfers to plates, etc. So 2 or 3 of you actually mentioned this point about putting the HQPP machine into pretty much a clean room environment, and certainly something for the industry to consider. But obviously, we also have to never lose sight of the fact that we're printing on paper. It is a dusty and unfortunately slightly dirty raw material. And I feel like you do that the future is still very, very solid and rosy for Flexo Postprint. So, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. I know that you're all going to be wandering around Connection, the virtual expo. So I'm sure that it would be great for any of the attendees who would like to engage with any of you on any of the topics that we've discussed. They'll be able to find you on the showground. So, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. And we will look forward to seeing you on the showground. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.